Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of, hey, I don't even have my thumbnail on here. That's not actually what this is called. Where's my thumbnail? Oh, it's gone. Isn't that wonderful? Anyway, this is called How to Get Hired. This is the Q&A. Anything you have, any question you might be having, or any issue you might be struggling with regard to careers, with regard to resumes, job interviews, how to get job interviews, how to pass job interviews, networking, where the good jobs are, how to discover the jobs, that kind of thing. Here we go. Bam. There we go. Now it feels like a live stream. Welcome. Thank you to everybody here. Get in the chat, ask me some questions. While we're waiting for the questions to show up, I have a couple of things that people have sent in. Let's go over to them. This is a comment on this video. I don't know if you've seen this video. This is the best video I've ever made. Okay, what animal are you? Best answer. Now, here is a comment we got recently on it. Here we go. When asked, what animal are you? Can you respond, is this a living or extinct animal or mythological animal? Living animal would be a shark because it's ruthless and unstoppable. Extinct animal would be a T-Rex because not many other dinosaurs are equipped to compete with it. And mythical animal would be a Pegasus because it is a horse, so it's hardworking. Okay, so this person is asking, can you ask a counter question and specify? Yeah, you can, but the fact that you're doing it signals something about you, and it signals something about you not super favorable, okay? If they ask you a question that in their mind is self-contained, they're expecting you to be able to answer it, and you come back at them saying, well, no, that's not specific enough. I need you to give me more information, okay? Sometimes that can signal that you're too finicky, too nitpicky, and it's a problem. Already dealing with you is kind of a problem. They feel they've been clear, but you say, no, you haven't in fact been clear. So that would be my concern if you did this. Another question I got recently, see if I can get this thing to work for me, is this. Someone says, hello, love your videos. I'm 62, currently self-employed and out looking for a full-time job. I have a job interview coming up. I'm looking for a low-level job in a county office to finish out my work career. I anticipate only working for 5 years. So when they ask the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? The answer is retired. How do you handle that? Or is this all moot and they have the common sense to not even bring it up? Also, my age is an obvious issue, which they can't talk about, but can I? Regards. So, okay, why do people ask that question in the first place? They say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. That is the future question. They're going to ask you usually, traditionally, one question about your future. Okay. Now, the point of the question, okay, is that they may have plans for you. Okay. In some organizations, they expect people to always be moving up. Okay. In other organizations, they expect you to stay in your job. Okay. They're not interested in somebody who is taking the job, but has immediate plans to move out of that job to something else. Okay. So that's why they're asking the question. They're trying to find your motivations. Where do you want to go? Okay. Usually in 5 years, the idea is that that's enough time to get over any short-term concerns and really do the thing you want to do, okay? So that's why they're asking this question. Now, I get your point. In 5 years, you're going to be retired. The problem I would have with somebody saying that to me is that it sounds like what you're really saying and what your attitude really is I'm just cruising to retirement. I don't care about this job. I don't have any interest in doing it long-term. The only thing I really care about is retirement. So that's basically my attitude. And that would be a poor attitude to convey, okay? So if you said something else like continuing to do something that I love, something like that, that would be better than saying, I plan to be retired. I get where you're coming at from a technical point of view, but the problem is the reasons for them asking this question are for you to signal what your attitude is and what you really want to do. Okay? And the answer, as far as they should be concerned, is you really want to do this job. That's what they're looking for. Okay? So if you give them that, they look at you more favorably. So that's what I would say to this, but that is a good question. And finally, the last of these is this one. I don't know where this came from, but it says, I was unemployed and applied to be a software developer for a large bank. They verbally offered me the job and told me the paperwork would be coming early January. As it was around Christmas, I stopped my job search with intent to pick it up again in January. Early January came and went, and no paperwork. I contacted them late January, and they said I needed to be patient. A few weeks later, they said they were still trying to approve the budget. March came and went. April came and went. I stopped trying to even contact them and continued my job search. I took a job with a completely different company in June. A month after my start date, the bank called, I guess this was a bank, and told me my paperwork was in the mail. I told them that I had taken another job, and they told me that I had been impatient and unloyal, I guess disloyal, and it probably wouldn't have worked out anyways with my impatient attitude. Wow, you gotta love that. They were pissed and told me that they would have to start their search all over again because of me. The nerve! I have 3 kids and a mortgage. I can't just be unemployed and have my family living in a tent eating out of a dumpster, or the dumpster, waiting for 6 months for the bank to finally move on an official offer. I moved on. What did they expect after 6 months of telling me, just be patient? That's a great, okay, I know why I put this aside earlier. Yeah, this is an example of some of the crap that job seekers have to deal with and the unreasonable attitudes of recruiters in the real world. There are a lot of great recruiters out there. Don't get me wrong. There really are. But there's a hell of a lot of bad ones too that are just out to lunch. And this is a story of one. So yeah, this person acted totally normally and you did the right thing. So of course. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was a great little story, I guess. There's no real question there. But that's good. You need to do what's right for you. And like I've said to people multiple times on this channel, don't stop your job search and wait by the phone for it to ring. Keep moving forward. Okay? If it rings, great. If people call you back and want to bring you in for an interview, great. If they call you back after the interview and want to give you an offer, great. But until that happens, keep moving forward. I don't care what they say. It's what's in writing that matters. Okay, I don't care about all the verbal promises in the world. If they haven't sent you anything in writing, it's not happening. At least not yet. So keep moving forward. Okay, number 1 rule for being in a job search type situation. Okay, let's go to you guys over here. I see there's some questions in the chat. Unfortunately, they're not showing up here for some reason. I guess because I'm switching screens. You guys like my second camera that I got here? You got a beautiful view of the garbage can. Okay, so Daipen is here. Daipen says hi. Hi, Daipen. Ria says hello. Hello, Ria. Gabriel says, I have a couple of questions. I'm looking for a career switch. Okay. Okay, it continues. I am in web development with 2 years experience. I'm looking to transition to a more specialized field, always in IT. How do I try to use my current experience to get in another job in another field? One answer, Gabriel, networking. Whenever anyone is changing careers, you usually, like pretty much almost universally, you can't go through standard channels. Because what's the number one thing that recruiters care about? It's years of experience. So the first question out of their mouth is going to be, how many years of experience do you have in whatever this new job is that they're trying to fill, right? Well, if you're changing careers, by definition, you have 0 years of experience in the job you're putting in for, right? That they're hiring for. So according to them, you're a non-starter. How could you ever possibly do this job if you've never done it before, right? Well, as we all know, that's ridiculous because people change careers all the time, right? It's rather a common thing. But they don't do it by being measured by that criteria, okay, or that criterium, okay? So you do it by networking. What you do is you go talk to a hiring manager who is a decision maker, maybe the department head of like whatever department that you want to work at within the IT department of some large organization. You have a meeting with them, okay? An informational interview. You can get that multiple different ways, okay? Sometimes it's not even a discussion about a job. It's nothing to do with like, I'm putting myself forward for this job. It has nothing to do with the job. It's just in the form of, I'd like to be able to ask you a few questions. Would I be able to get half an hour of your time? I'd love to hear your expert opinion on something. It has nothing to do with a job, right? But it gets you in front of them. And then you ask them about their department, what they do, what skills are necessary, where's it going in the future, what's important to really succeed in that business. Has it changed in the last few years? Has there been like a big sea change in how it's done? Things like this. You pick up on that and you let them talk. And if they're super enthusiastic, and they're usually going to be enthusiastic to a degree about talking to you about stuff that they do, that they know a lot about, and that they're interested in, right? And if you're interested in their answers and you're asking some intelligent questions and you're throwing some interesting things out at them and saying, well, in my experience, when it comes to this stuff, people focus on this, is that what you found? Something like that. And you're asking intelligent questions that show that you're on the ball and you get it, right? Then you can go away and come back a couple of weeks later and say, hey, I see you guys have an opening in your department, would I be able to put in for that? Something like that. And you already know the person, and if they really enjoy talking to you and they can see that you're awesome, and they know that you have some skills, they're probably going to say, sure, yeah, come on down. Let's do a job interview. Something like that. Okay, so there's multiple ways in. It's usually done by networking in some way. Or alternatively, you can sort of put yourself forward by saying, this is about a job from the very get-go. You say like, look, personal message to the hiring manager. I understand you have a vacancy in this department. I have skills in this other area, but I've always had a passion for doing this. I know a little bit about it. I feel I'd be great in the role. Would we be able to talk? Would you be able to spare me half an hour of your time? And we could discuss whether it makes sense for me to sort of put in for this. Something like that, right? There's multiple ways of doing it. Okay, and that gets around some of the, mechanical issues where technically you haven't actually done that before, so you have 0 years of experience doing it. But come on, let's be honest here. You have the skills, and if you have an interest in doing it and knowledge for it, and maybe some independent experience you've done on your own as almost a hobby, or you've learned about it in passing, maybe it makes sense for you to do it. Okay, so there's all kinds of stuff going on there, all kinds of stuff to explore. That's the way people change careers. They change careers usually by having a face-to-face interaction with the hiring manager, and then the hiring manager can see that you're great to deal with, you're professional, you're passionate about that, you know a bit about it, you know your stuff. So it's like, why wouldn't they consider you for it? Usually that gets your foot in the door. They say like, okay, take a deeper look at this person, and it can usually work out from there because it gives you an advantage. The advantage is that you're the only one that's knocking on their door saying, let's talk. And if they accept it, you're the only candidate that they've met face to face, and they've seen how awesome you are and how passionate you are and how interested you are to even do what you've done, to like go and meet with them, right? That's elevated you above all the other candidates that are total strangers. They're just resumes on a desk. You don't know who these people are. These could be the applicants that apply for a job and don't even realize 2 days later that they've applied for it, right? You don't know. But you do know that this person has showed up and they are passionate and they are awesome and they are professional and they are interested in doing this job, So that gives you an edge. That's how this stuff generally works. Mr. Friendly says, hey, love this channel. I'm not sure if this is the correct form, but curious what your main career, like my career is. I'm a consultant. I'm doing YouTube on the side. I had a corporate career. I eventually got to be the CEO of a relatively small company in Canada. That's where I am. And, I sort of climbed the ladder over a couple of decades, and I have a technical background, degree in engineering, did not become an engineer, didn't go that career path, instead went into heavy industry, started out as a supervisor of tradespeople, and, in heavy industrial work and transportation, stuff like that. Worked in the railroads, worked in aerospace, worked in, electromagnetic equipment like motors, generators, pumps, like industrial equipment, that kind of stuff. And then got out of the game. Said, to hell with this. I'm no longer interested in doing, working for big companies. I had started a small company earlier on in my career, so I basically used used those ideas to start a consulting business. I've been a consultant for 10 years. The last job I had ended in 2014, something like that. And yeah, I've got an MBA and a bunch of stuff. I've already been into all this stuff before. So there you go. For what that's worth. My buddy, EGR NHL says, do you have any tips for networking at a conference? Well, conferences, it's usually easy to network at a conference because if you have actual events, it's a sort of structured kind of thing where you're all in a classroom or an auditorium, or some kind of convention center type environment where they have an event. You're all listening to a presentation or a speech or whatever, or there's some group participation thing. It makes it easy, okay? If it's an unstructured thing, okay, they're just people in a room kind of schmoozing and talking to each other. That's a little bit more challenging. I don't like those events. Because the way you do it in both situations, or at least the way I've always done it, is just you go up to people and say, hey, how you doing? And what's going on? And then, some kind of an icebreaker. And an icebreaker is talking about something that applies to you both, usually the thing that's right in front of you. So if you arrive at a place and you're put in a class and you're sitting with a bunch of people around you, you'd say, hey, how you doing? I'm Bill. Did you have trouble finding parking? Or something like that. Something that applies to you both. Did you get caught in the rain? Have you been to one of these things before? Can you hear what he's saying? Stuff like this, right? And that usually gets people talking. And, if you have a business card or something like that, that really helps. You just give them your card, and usually that's the signal for them to give you a card of their own. And what's on the card, you can react to it. You're like, oh, you're the head of this, or you do this. And then that triggers an entire line of questioning. You could say what do you guys do over there? I've always wondered, and then that just opens a whole can of worms. You can get a conversation going if that's what you want. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I could talk about that for a long time, but I've got a stream of questions building up here. But great question. Here we go again. Julia says, even if this man didn't find another job by the time he received their offer, he still shouldn't have gone to this organization. Yeah, like you're talking about, that was the, I think this one, right? No, this one, this, right? Where they were stringing him along. It was like a bank or something. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's just bad behavior. The problem, though, is that this is bad behavior coming from the HR department, from the recruiters, okay? Now, I have seen situations where the HR department, or at least the recruiters, are a bunch of idiots. But in the department of people where you would be working, okay, like let's say you're applying to the bank to work in their IT department or something. The people in the IT department are really awesome, but in order to get that job and work with them, you got to go through these morons in HR. I have seen that before. You've got different departments. Some of them are really awesome to deal with. Some of them aren't. So sometimes you get that. You do get that. You get like a good job that's sort of behind like a bad gatekeeper, right? It's gate kept by, a bad gatekeeper. Sometimes the way the gatekeeper is acting is totally indicative of the way the entire organization works. So if they're a jackass, the entire organization is populated entirely by jackasses. That does happen too. So, I mean, there's no sure rule. What I can say is that, if usually the person that you're dealing with is really awesome, in my experience, it's less common that you deal with somebody that's really awesome and then behind them is like a real jerk, that you then really have to work with. That is possible. I have seen it, but that's not super common in my experience. But then again, that's just anecdotal. You guys might have your own stories about having dealt with that situation. Where did I leave off here? Mark says, once a job offer is sent, is it possible to negotiate job offer details like salary? Of course it is, Mark. Of course. Yeah. Look, you are not a slave and you don't have to do what somebody says. Okay. Like, who are these people to tell you you must, live by these rules under these conditions? It's like, no, of course not. It's a proposal, right? They're saying, okay, we think you would be good working here. We think you should work here under these terms and conditions. This is what you get paid. This is your vacation. You can very easily turn around and say, well, thank you very much. I'm very flattered that you guys have, faith in me to give me this offer and this proposal. That's great. This is really good. That's really good. That's really good. Unfortunately, though, I need this for it to make sense for me, and I'm going to need this. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Once again, it's a counter proposal. Now, obviously, they can turn around and say, nope, sorry, we can't accept that. Deal's off. They can do anything they want, just like you can do anything you want. Okay? It depends on the situation whether they will or not. Sometimes it's reasonable to expect that if you ask for more money, they would say, absolutely not. Okay? If you are getting hired for a job and the job is like whatever position it is, let's say it's a position where in that company they employ 2,000 people in that position. You're one of them. Okay? You would be one of them. And they're all paid the same rate. Okay? And you say, no, I want more money for that. To do this job, you got to pay me more. Chances are they're going to say no, absolutely not. If we give you more money, that means we would have to give all other, like 1,999 people, we'd have to give them all the same money as you, or else it wouldn't be fair. So, sorry, not going to happen. Okay, you could either take it or leave it, or we just don't want to offer the job to you anymore. That's much less common that they'll retract it completely. But, usually you could expect them to say, no, it's our original proposal or nothing. So you decide. Okay. Other situations where it's a more custom type job, you're getting a job in a company where, like, maybe it's a smaller company. The company employs 50 people, 100 people, and you're the only one with that title. Okay. Or maybe you're one of two people that have that title, okay? And then it's more possible that you could say, I'm going to need this much money or this much vacation, and they'll say, okay, sure. If we say no and you decline the offer, we'd have to go and interview a bunch more people and, talk about this some more and, do more background checks and things. It's like, look, we're just going to pay you the money. It's actually cheaper for us to do that than to do all those other activities I just described. So sure, we're not offending anybody. It's not unfair because if we give you a little bit more money than we planned, it doesn't affect any other employee. It's not unfair to anyone. Something like that. Like it's certainly possible. Okay. The way you win at that game is you have multiple options. I've talked about this repeatedly. Negotiating power means having a lot of alternatives. Okay. You can't force someone to accept something. That's not negotiation. With persuasion and sales, you can maybe make it more attractive for them to say yes, but you can't force their hand. They have free will. They can always say no to anything, and just like you can. You can quit your job right now if you wanted to. If you're working, you could say, you know what, screw this. You could not give them notice. You could not even tell them that you're quitting, and you could just stay home and disconnect your phone. I mean, you have the perfect right to do that. There's nothing they can do to stop you from doing that in most countries. So, the way you win at this game is you have a plan. If they say no, you say, okay, that's fine, because I have something else lined up. I'm not going to take this job for less than this amount of money because I know that I've just gotten an offer from another company for that same amount of money. So if you say no, that's fine. Go ahead, say no, but I'm not going to take it. Doesn't make any sense for me. I'm working over there, right? They're paying me that much, So that's negotiating power. It's having other options. Okay, it's perfectly reasonable for you to make a counter offer. You just have to be prepared for any bluff you make to be called, right? So if you have no other alternative than to take whatever they give you, that might not be the best position to start making counter offers, okay? Because you always run the risk of them saying no and then you have nothing, right? So get a bunch of options and then you have the power. You say, it only makes sense for me to take it if I get this, this, and this. It's up to you. That's how this stuff works. Excellent question. Excellent question, Mark. Way to go. Julia says it's regarding the bank story. Yes, I figured that as much. Mark, Mark says, or best to accept job offer without counter offer. Yeah, well, same thing. Dipin. If I'm sure I'm saying your name wrong. I say everybody's name wrong. It's nothing personal. I insist upon saying everyone's name wrong on the internet. Then it's all fair and equal. Everyone is equally disrespected and offended. And that's how I like to have everybody all whipped up into a frenzy before I then discuss something with them. Dipin says, is there any hope for me to get a job? Of course there is, Dipin. Of course there is. Listen, being qualified to do a job is not the same thing as knowing how to get a job. They're two different things, okay? All this stupid song and dance that people go through for how to answer job interview questions or how to discover jobs in the first place or how to put yourself forward for a job, these are all separate skills. And the great news is that there's a lot of resources on the internet, that you can learn about each of these. Okay. The bad news is that you might not have been prepared for this. Okay. You might have figured that just having a skill is enough. And it should be enough but unfortunately in the real world it isn't. You then need to get a job and you need to learn at least one of the techniques of how to get a job. So, of course there's hope. Of course there is. You have skills, you have talents, you can do things. People need things to be done. They need things to be done by friendly people that are easy to deal with, that are reliable, that are punctual, that have some kind of enthusiasm for doing the job. There's always a need for that. Alex says, I would like to create a learning Spanish language channel to teach professional Spanish. What do you think about that? Thank you very much. That sounds familiar. Did you ask me that question in the past at some point? Weeks ago or something. I remember being asked that. That jumps out in my mind. okay, what do I think about that? Well, okay, number one, that seems like as good an idea as any. Number two, the next step would be then to validate that idea. Go and, first of all, the most obvious thing is to check to see if anyone else is doing it. I'm sure somebody else would be doing that. Are they making money at it? If so, how? Like if they're getting customers and providing something in some way, how are they doing it? I'm not necessarily saying you have to copy what they're doing, but at least it might validate some elements of it. Then, once you've kind of made your plan more specifically of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, then start validating each of those pieces. Okay? If I do this, will this be the reaction? Will I get that reaction? Okay? Yes. And the other thing is that you don't know till you try. Okay? So stop the thinking phase and start the doing phase with one caveat. And the one caveat is don't spend any money. Whatever you're going to do it without spending money. Then, you're not really risking much. You're risking your time being wasted, and that's about it. Okay? You may be risking getting disappointed, okay, when you try something and it doesn't work. But you're not really risking anything important. You're not risking like $100,000 or something, So, yeah. Also, if this is what you want to do, tune into my weekly live streams that I do in the morning. I just did one this morning called Side Hustle Ideas. That's where we talk about entrepreneurship and how to build businesses and stuff like that. This is a topic that I love to talk about. It's actually more my core competency than how to get a job. So I'd love to talk about that more. I try and do it in that live stream. Tune into those every week. Ask me some questions about it there, and we can get into it more. Gabriel says, yes, I think you're right. Sounds like a solid plan. Okay, good. Mr. Friendly, thank you for your high-level background about yourself. I've been a software engineer for the past 16 years, and I'm looking for a career change. Yes, I don't blame you. I've made many career changes, and yeah, it's like you stay in one place, there's only so much you can learn. And that's fine for a lot of people. That becomes your thing. You learn that one thing really well. You learn all the stuff that's ancillary to it. And that's fine. But especially when I was younger, it's like, I know that there's more to life or a career than just this one little tiny cog in the big machine, And I was disappointed because, if you're in this one place, especially some places I've worked, you would have to be there for like 30 years to like learn everything. The way they taught you. You were surrounded by people that they did not want to share knowledge. They felt that knowledge hoarded was power because, if you're the only one that knows how to do something, that makes you more valuable. They can't fire you. At least that's the theory. Organizations want their employees to share their knowledge, right? To cross-train everybody and everything. That's what they would want. Individual workers have the opposite incentive. They want knowledge hoarded. So the problem is if you're in that environment, there's a limit to what you want. People want to keep you the junior person forever. They don't want you to learn everything they know because they still want to be your superior and they want to have an edge on you, right? So it's like situations like that, it's only natural that you get tired of it after a while. Even if the work is still interesting, you're just tired of that type arrangement and you want to branch out. You want to learn more. And I don't blame you. I felt exactly the same way. Gabriel says, what language do you use, Mr. Friendly? Okay. Untitled fan says, Bill, I'm so happy to be here to watch your channel. Well, thank you, Untitled fan. I'm happy to have you. I'm glad to see you here. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Mokal says, should I resign without any offer letter? What does that mean? Resign means quit. Offer letter is something that you need to get the job. Oh, I see what you're saying. Should you quit without having received an offer letter from another company is what you're trying to say. You can, but it's riskier. You know, like it depends on your personal situation. I can't answer that question for you. If you're in a situation where, like, you know, you really need money, you know, you got to pay rent, you got to pay expenses, and you need money coming in, and you need your job, and you don't have any other job lined up, it's going to be quite risky for you to just quit with nothing lined up. If something comes along soon, great, but that may not happen. Also, if the world was to go into a sudden recession, or, you know, something was to happen, you know, you could be the loser on this deal. So it's up to you. I mean, depending on your personal situation and what's going on, and, you know, what your prospects are, that's something I can't answer for you. Just understand the risks of doing it, and then do what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? For some people, it might be right for them. For others, it might not be. So just think it through first. Mehmet says, can you name the most attractive countries for skilled migrants? No, I can't. No, I'm not an immigration type expert. I wouldn't want to give misinformation. I don't know. And I mean, I don't think that's an answerable question. Skilled in what? Like, you know, some countries, they'll welcome you with, you know, wide arms if you have specific skills in certain things. Other countries care more about other things. So, I mean, it depends what we're talking. Dipin, you were asking about what? Is there any hope for me to get a job? That's the last thing you said. And then you said how to deal with this. Like how to get a job? That's very vague, Dipin. Do research on how to get a job. I've got a ton of videos. Other people have other resources out on the internet, on YouTube, or on other, like, there's articles and things. Just start learning, okay? And then start trying things. Try and manage your risk. That means you don't want to risk your current job if you've got a job. You don't want to spend a ton of money, but you want to learn. You want to try things, okay? There are many different methods to get a job, okay? Some are more exotic than others. The default thing for a lot of people is to respond to posted jobs on the internet. That's the default thing. It is not the most promising method. It's not the best method. Okay, it is not the best method. The best method is some form of networking, and there's many, many different things you can do within that umbrella of networking. Okay, but start learning about these things. Okay, and don't just do one thing. Do a couple of different things. Like look, starting on my channel, a long time ago, I did hour-long videos that focused entirely on one method of getting a job. It wasn't a Q&A like this. I wasn't constantly in the chat. It was just me sort of monologuing it, talking about how it all works. So you could start with those. They're probably not the most exciting things to listen to, but, you know, it maybe gives you a background. And then there's a ton of other stuff on the internet. So just start your learning experience. Gabriel says, here is the second thought. Should I continue with my general FE career? What's FE? Or just switch to another field? If I want to switch, I have to study a lot. It's hard to even get a job. What's FE? Financial engineering? I mean, what are we talking about here? Where you could exceed in another field instead, which is much easier if you already have a job in that environment. Yeah, okay, but generally, listen, the concept, as far as I'm concerned, is, you know, if you keep starting from scratch, you never really get anywhere. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a dumb idea, but you got to be conscious of that. Just constantly starting over is like, you're just wasting your time. You're treading water. maybe you could do that if you had no other choice. But, what led you to take the first thing in the first place? That's what I'm wondering. If you're now considering it a mistake, what evidence do you have that you're not making the same mistake again, picking something that's not going to work out? Okay, that would be the first question I would want to explore. Secondly, the thing about chasing trends, maybe like right now, like different industries have different sort of cycles. They got boom bust cycles, and they go like this, but they don't all do that at the same time. Usually they're all doing that independently. It's only in like a recession when all these boom bust cycles line up and then they all go down together, right? Even when there's no recession, they're all kind of doing this, but they're just all out of sync, right? And some industries, the variance is more than others, right? So if right now nobody's hiring in the industry that you've gone to school for, okay, maybe in 6 months they will be. And if you go back to school now for something else where they're hiring now, maybe in like a 6 months or a year or whenever you come out of school, maybe they won't be hiring in that industry. So, I mean, this is the risk you're running, right? So as long as you're aware of this, okay, what I would do is I would try everything in my power to use what you already have, okay? And then if you are indeed interested in shifting sideways to another field or something, maybe it's possible to do that without starting from scratch. Get your foot in the door with a company, a big corporation that does a lot of things. Start in one department, see if you can get transferred over to another department, something like that, And that way you could jump the field without going back to school for a couple of years and then trying to get an entry-level job again. That's just my thinking on it. It's going to totally depend on your particular situation, but just be very sure before you just wipe the slate clean and go back, start from scratch. Dipin says, can employers figure out you have written your cover letter and resume with the help of using ChatGPT? I'm not an expert on ChatGPT. I would say yes. Simply because ChatGPT, whenever I fooled around with it, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. Okay, it's brilliant. And it's brilliant because it shows you where things are going. They're going to a place that's going to be amazing, okay? But my personal opinion of ChatGPT is it's useful for some things, but it's not useful for others. Now, when it comes to getting it to create something, create content, I don't think it's very useful because it creates the most generic, bland crap that you can imagine. It is content. It's great. It's amazing that you can get content that's not written by a person. Okay? So that is a huge step forward. But if you're looking for a great cover letter or something that has a bit of character or something that really is cool in some way, I don't think it can give you that. Not in its current form. Maybe in the future. I'm sure in the future we will get there. It's like saying, can you get ChatGPT to write a great romance novel? I would say no. It can write a novel, but it's boring and stupid and lame in its current form, right? Can you get it to write a joke? Yeah, it can, but the joke is lame. It's not funny. You know what I mean? So can it write a cover letter? Yes, but it's not going to be an awesome cover letter. Now, if you want to use it for that, go ahead. I don't have a problem with that. That's where the world is going. But look, young people maybe haven't seen this yet. I'm a little bit older, so I have seen it yet. Whenever there's truly disruptive technology, like when the internet came out and you got all these people that thought it was the absolute end of the world. Oh my God, this is the worst thing. It's going to change this forever. It's, things will never be the same. Kids will grow up learning nothing. And then when they came out with like what they used to call the Web 2.0, which is social networking, you can then publish something on the internet. You can put your content on the internet easily. You don't have to be a computer programmer. They thought that was going to be the end of the world too. It's like, oh my God, this will be the end of like the news outlets. No one will watch movies. No one will watch TV. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the end. No one will listen to music. It's the end. And of course it isn't. It's just that people adapt to it, right? So now they're saying that about ChatGPT, just like they've said it for every major innovation along the way. They're saying, oh my God, it'll be the end of everything. People in education are freaking out. These people are absolutely freaking out. Their first instinct is to ban it. No. Just stick your finger in your ears. No, it doesn't exist, right? It's stupid. It's a tool like any other tool. It's good for some things, but it's not good for others. Okay, like any other tool. So yeah, you could write if they don't really care too much about the cover letter, you just have to have a cover letter. Maybe using ChatGPT to write it is not the worst idea in the world. But if it's something critical, okay, something that they're going to be judging you on, that you really want to stand out and you want to make it really good, don't use ChatGPT for it. Maybe you could use it to get ideas in a secondary sense or something, but write it yourself, make it good. That's what I would say. That's just my personal opinion, based on my experience. Moises says, hi, Bill. This is Moises from Mexico. You are getting more Spanish audience. You are great, and anything I may help you on, I would be glad. Well, great. Well, thank you, Moises. That's nice to hear. I told you, I took like 1 year of Spanish when I was 15 years old, so I could say, hola, mi nombre es Guillermo. Yo tengo 15 años, right? Unfortunately, I haven't really learned much Spanish since then, so it doesn't really work out. But I do like the new version of Metallica with Rob Trujillo, so I'm practically a native. So, and thank you for saying so. Dipin says, you are awesome for making these videos. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you think that, Dipin. Hopefully it isn't too boring. See, I got my new camera, so I can make it new and exciting. I can make it fresh, right? It'd be even more fresh if I did this, right? But that's just the way it goes. Dipin says, why are my chats not showing up? I don't know. I can see this one. Alex says, is it possible to make money with that Spanish channel? What is the way to make money? From Barcelona. Thank you, Bill. I contacted with you about Spanish language, but no specific question like that. Yeah, well, listen, we can get into that more in the entrepreneurial type chat, but to try and give you an answer is, I don't know about anything about like learning Spanish specifically, but I imagine you could do what a lot of people do, where you go the content marketing route, which is where you give away free stuff, like what I'm doing on this YouTube channel. I got a lot of free videos. What that does is people can see your stuff for free, so they can judge whether it's good or not. And then if they especially like it, they think like, yes, this is like totally my learning style, and I relate to the person, and I like that way of communicating. Then you sell some kind of product, some course or something, I don't know. Or maybe you provide services. I don't know. It could be like a local thing where you go and you, almost like music lessons, you do like a language lab, like if you want to go that route. And it's a way for you to publicize yourself, and then for people to get a free sample of what you do. And then if that's what they're looking for, then they can sign up to take your classes or whatever. Or you sell a digital course online, like with videos in it or something. I don't know how people learn languages. I mean, I'm just guessing at this stuff. But you either provide a service, or you provide a product, or you provide a combination thereof. Those are your only choices to make money. Everything that is sold on planet Earth is in that form. It's either a service or a product or some combination between them. Okay? So, it would be some variation of that, I imagine. But as I say, I do an entrepreneurial chat called Side Hustle Ideas every week. Join me for that. We can get into more details there if you want. Gabriel says, web development, front-end development. I want to be very good, very, very good at one thing and then charge a lot. and it's easier with the job that I want to get into because it is less saturated, much easier in general to get good at, etc. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's the age-old argument between should you become a specialist or a generalist, right? And there's very serious pros and cons for both. I myself am a generalist, okay? And I've really felt the challenges of being a generalist. There's so many times that I was not the one that was chosen because somebody else had more specialized skills, right? But in order to do things like run a business, for example, like let's pretend even in the like establishment career track, you're like wanting to be a worker and then a supervisor and then a manager and then maybe a general manager and then maybe an executive manager and then maybe an owner, like, whatever your ambition is. For those higher roles, you have to be a generalist. You could be the greatest, manufacturing engineer ever. Like IT, you could be the greatest developer ever. Like you can write code like nobody else. Okay? But in order to run a business and be successful, you need a hell of a lot more skills than just that. You need to understand how to sell it. You need to understand how to manage people. You need to understand how to manage money. You need to understand like what steps to do to grow your business. When there's this problem, what will the solution be to that? Some people will fix it with a sales solution. Other people will fix it with a technical solution. Other people will fix it with a people solution. Some people will try and solve it with a money-based solution, right? I mean, how do you know which is the best? Do you know anything about all those other things? No, not if you're a specialist. So that's what makes it challenging. And then the other thing is that thinking you can just pay people to do all the rest of it for you, that's wrong. That doesn't work. So there's pros and cons of either. Now, specialists tend to get paid more in more established career paths. Think of like airline pilots. You want someone that's flying the plane. You want them to be highly trained, highly qualified. You want them to be paid very well. You're not willing to compromise on that. But what are the career prospects for airline pilots? You dedicate your whole life to doing that one thing, and if something prevents you from doing it, then it's a big problem, right? Think of like a heart surgeon. Same thing. You got to put a ton of training and learning into it to do that one thing. Now, you make a lot of money. You might have to travel around the world, halfway around the world to get a job in it, but you could probably get a good job. But if something happens, you're a heart surgeon and whoops, you've injured your hand. You're in a car crash, you injured your hand. That's too bad because you're such a specialist, it really limits you. So there's pros and cons of both. Generalist, you could get a job anywhere. There's always something you can help someone with, but you're never the most qualified in any one thing. So it's a double-edged sword. So generally, you would want to do things that combine many things to work, right? So anyway, there's my rambling trip to nowhere for today. Have we reached the end of the questions here? It's a nice. Dipin, can the moderator let us know what the rules are for posting questions? I posted my question twice. I can see it, but not you. There is no moderator. Now, YouTube does filter words, and I turned on the extra high-powered, anti-expletive or offensive kind of filter, whatever you call that. So I don't know if that's what's picking it up. If it's something, with bad words in it, if it's something controversial, if it's something that somebody could find offensive, it'll probably be filtered out. But there's no moderator that's deleting it or something. I can tell you that. I mean, I do this whole channel just myself. So I don't know, put it in the comments if you can. Not in the chat, in the comments. And I'll see if I can. maybe at the very end of the chat here, I'll see if I can just check those briefly. My question was about resumes when switching to SE jobs. What's SE? From the hospitality industry. Hope you can see the following. While we're waiting, I'm going to open a window. This will probably slow down my feed, so just be warned. But I'm just going to see if I can pull up the comment. So if you put something in the comments, I should be able to get it. I know, riveting stuff, huh? We've reached the end of the question. So if you do have a question, just ask it in the chat for everyone else. Okay, I've got the comments open and I don't see anything from the chat. Okay. Well, we've come to the end of the questions in the feed. So unless anyone has anything else, that's pretty much going to be it for today. And I just noticed that I don't have the proper thumbnail up. How did that happen? No, that doesn't work either. Oh, it's because I'm in the wrong screen. That's why. There we go. Man, I'm just not with it today. Anyway, I want to thank, there's 28 of you guys here. Thank you for being here. I do these every week. So, if you have questions about resumes, careers, networking, interviews, job interview questions, job offers, salary negotiation, all that kind of stuff, I do these every week. You can ask questions here. I don't have, unfortunately, I just don't have the huge amount of time it would take to answer people in text, typing out answers to comments on videos. It's just not practical. So I do these instead. I do one a week. And I also do one on entrepreneurship, and I do one on polls and things. Now, I see there's some more questions coming in. I will take a look at those in a minute. I just want to take a moment to say that if you are new to the whole job search thing, you feel totally lost, you don't know what to do, or you're not new to it, but you're new to networking, how to do networking, or you're an introvert that wants to get into networking, but you don't know how to do it. It seems very intimidating. You're kind of lost. You don't know where to start. If you're in any of those situations, I created this course specifically to help you. Okay. That's where I've put, my sort of methods, what I would recommend for how to get hired. That includes writing a resume. That includes creating a LinkedIn profile. That includes discovering the jobs. That includes applying for the jobs. That includes doing the interviews. That includes getting the offers and doing salary negotiation as an option. All of that, okay, either going through what I call standard channels, which is, finding public job postings and then responding to them with an application. That's standard channels. Or the sort of alternate channels, the networking route, where you're sort of going outside the system, okay, which is actually the most popular way of getting a job. Don't take my word for that. Go independently research that. You'll see it's true. It's a surprise to some people. But I cover that too, how to get a job through networking. And I give a couple of methods that in particular I think are appealing to introverts, because there's stuff you can do from your computer or your smartphone. They're not things you have to do by going to networking mixer events and things like that, not that kind of route. So if you're interested in that, check out that course. There's a link in the description. I also have another video where I just answer questions about the course, and I talk about what the course is and how it works. And give you more information on it. So check that out if that appeals to you. No pressure. I also want to thank my members. Some people have joined my channel as members. They get access to members-only videos that I've done. So thank you to them and to my Patreons. I have a handful of Patreons that support me, and it's great to see that show of support. So thank you very much. Now, let's see. There's been some activity here. Gabriel says, when did it become so hard to get a job with zero experience? I bet it wasn't like this in the past. Well, I don't know about, it wasn't like this kind of in the 1950s and 60s, but ever since then, it kind of has been. The tools have changed, right? First there was the internet, then there was social networking, but it's basically been like this. There's more to getting hired than just being skilled at a job. You have to know how to get hired. And I understand people's frustration saying that that's stupid. You shouldn't have to. I totally agree. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in. And the sooner you learn this, the better you will, the sooner you will overcome the obstacles and the sooner you will start prospering. I'm sorry you're having a frustrating time there, Daipen. I'm not sure what the issue is. Ant Johnson says, from your experience, Bill, I was one of the first candidates to interview for this company, and 3 weeks later, the HR lady says the process is ongoing. Should I consider it as a lost cause? No. Look, nothing changes, Ant Johnson. Nothing changes. You pursue an opportunity, and then you keep moving forward, okay? You don't stop and wait for the phone to ring. You keep looking forward. Look for other opportunities. Keep, applying for jobs. Keep exploiting networking opportunities, okay? Keep doing that stuff. Keep pursuing leads, okay? Now, sooner or later, you're going to get some bites, okay? You're going to get some calls, some callbacks, or whatever you want to call them, okay? That's great. But don't sit around waiting for that to happen and not move forward. Just keep moving forward. Most jobs that you pursue, most leads you pursue result in nothing. Okay, that's just how it goes. It's like sales, okay? Sales. It's a numbers game. You want to make 10 sales? If you know that your success rate is 10%, you know that, okay, all I've got to do is pursue 100 leads. If I want to make 10 sales, I'm probably going to be pursuing in the order of 100 leads before I get 10 sales. Now, that's good and bad. It's bad that, your success rate is only 10%, but it's good that it's relatively predictable. You know what you have to do to get those 10 sales, right? So same thing with a job. It's a sales pitch of a different kind. You're selling yourself. You're pitching yourself as an employee to customers who are in the market for an employee, right? It's exactly the same. Now, your hit rate is going to be very low. It's going to be like 1%, 2%, whatever. Okay? But if you know that you're going to just put out 100 leads, like good leads, not just like spamming like, a whole bunch of people, but like 100 good leads, promising leads that could turn into something reasonably, right? For you to have 1 or 2 bites. It's kind of disappointing in that you realize how much work you have to do, but it's also good in the sense that, like, look, I now know what I have to do, right? Okay, so that's kind of what's going on here. So it's not like a lot of people from operations, from technical areas, the way they think is that if I put time and effort into something, it should have a payoff directly. Okay? So they have the attitude that, like, okay, if I pursue a job offer with you, if I invest my time to write up an application, to come down to an interview, to deal with your email correspondence, right? I'm expecting a payoff, or else this is stupid. It's silly. I should get a payoff here. That's how they're used to thinking. Whereas somebody from, say, sales knows that, like, look, this is, or finance even. You would know from finance. You have a portfolio of investments, and some will make money and some will lose money. In fact, a lot of them will lose money, but the few that make money, you've made proportionally more money on those to cover all of your losses and then still make a profit, right? So it's a numbers game, okay? And a lot of people are not used to that concept. They expect that if I put effort into something, I expect to see a payoff, or else I'm no good, or I'm a failure, or, whatever. I'm going to internalize this and it means all this bad stuff. It's like, no, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're no good. It just means that the person that really needs you and the job you'd love to have just haven't come together yet. You're still valuable, and there is that job out there. You just haven't connected with it yet. Okay? So anyway, long story short, Aunt Johnson, that another rambling trip to nowhere to basically say that, look, don't wait by the phone. Just keep moving forward. And if they call you back, great. If not, that's fine too, because you are pursuing other promising leads. Okay? And sooner or later, something is going to happen. Aunt Johnson, and you say now it's in the IT field. That does not surprise me. Okay? For reasons I just explained a minute ago. You're a technical type person if it's in the IT field, usually. And that's why this kind of thinking doesn't come naturally. Dipin says, I have a degree in CS. I guess computer science? Worked in the hotel industry and now want to switch to software. If I omit hotel experience from... Didn't you ask me that? Like that also sounds familiar from like a couple of weeks ago or something. I vaguely remember something like that. Yeah, there's going to be a gap on your resume because there's a gap in reality, right? Oh no, I don't want to show a gap in reality. Well, there is a gap, right? You are changing careers. I think I know what you're getting at. The question is, should you keep that non-relevant experience on your resume? That's the first question. The answer is no. You and I both know that experience is relevant. It might not be directly in the field of what you're putting in for, but you learned a lot of ancillary things for it, like for doing it. So it is useful. We both know this. However, the problem is you're not trying to impress me. You're trying to impress a recruiter. Recruiters think differently. They are trained to think a certain way. Okay? And the way they are trained to think is that if you're putting in for a job, what was it? In a hotel, okay? They are trained to think that anything other than hotel or hospitality experience is irrelevant. That's how they're trained to think. We both know this is stupid, but that's how they're trained to think. So the problem is you're trying to impress them. And this is how they think. So what I'm advising you to do is to do something that playing the odds will cater to their type of thinking. Okay? Where you don't show them a confused resume where you got IT experience and you're applying for a hotel thing, right? Okay? So yes, you're going to have a gap on it. Now, what have I said repeatedly in the past about if you have a work gap? It's the same thing like you're changing careers. Okay? If you have a work gap, if you have a non-standard resume, you are always at a disadvantage when you go through a recruiter. Okay? If you have a standard career path, the standard career path for this would be you get a qualification in hospitality. You then start out in an entry-level job in the hospitality business. Then you apply for a more intermediate level job in the hospitality business. That would be a standard career path. If you have that, that's what you've done, then there's no issue. You can go through a recruiter. They are trained to analyze what you've written because they can only analyze these things at the most basic level imaginable. And they'll say, okay, you seem to be qualified, right? I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I've been the CEO of a company. I could put in for this hospitality job and they'll look at my resume and they'll go, well, I don't see any hospitality experience in here. So you clearly probably won't be able to do this job, right? Now, I will feel very insulted by that because it's like, come on, I've done stuff a lot more advanced than that. Not to sound totally arrogant, but I think I could do it. But according to the way they think and they analyze resumes, I would not be hired, and neither would you be if you have a bunch of IT experience on your resume, okay? Now, if you have a gap, that's also a red flag for a recruiter, okay? How do we get around resume gaps? We go around recruiters. We don't go through recruiters, okay? We go to the hiring manager. We do a form of networking where you sit down with the hiring manager. When they see that you know your stuff when it comes to hospitality, when they see that you're awesome to deal with, when they see the fact that you are enthusiastic enough to show up to have a meeting with them, that signals that you're passionate about that job. You're the only one that showed up to meet with them. And already that elevates you above all the other applicants that might have tons of hospitality experience, but they didn't show up. You did. They weren't brave enough to do this. They weren't skilled enough to do this. They weren't likable enough to do this. You are. Okay? So you have beaten them when it comes to those criteria. Okay? Okay, so that's how this stuff works. Okay, you have to go around. I've done, I think, a couple of videos on like work gaps. What do I do if I have a work gap on my resume? Go and watch those. Okay, they basically tell you a slightly more thought out, complete version of what I said. And I have other resources that can fill in the blanks of how to do the things that I'm recommending. And if that doesn't work for you, I have an entire course. Okay, if you want to go that route. But there are ways around it. But you just got to learn some principles. Okay, you can't go through standard channels if you have a non-standard career path and thus a non-standard resume. Okay? Welcome to the club. I have a non-standard resume too. I told you. I got a degree in engineering, didn't work as an engineer. I went to work at the railroad. Then I worked in the aerospace industry. Then I worked in industrial equipment. Then I coached startups and taught classes in university for fun. And then I became a consultant and I have a YouTube channel. I mean, like, you know what I mean? If I give my resume to any recruiter, nobody would hire me for anything, right? Because it's just confusing. It's not what they're trained to value. Doesn't mean that it holds you back. It's just that you have to go about things in a different way. Zita. There's a name. I like it. Hello. Recently, I got a new job. The talks were weird, I would say, as I was interviewed only 40 minutes while the rest of the candidates, the candidates, reported that they talked. Are you like typing this with your thumbs at 1,000,000 miles an hour? Or you could be typing this while on a bike. That's the best way to learn. Just don't crash into a tree and you'll be fine. I was interviewed for only 40 minutes when the rest of the candidates reported that they talked for 2 hours or even 3 hours. Is that good? Generally it is if you go for a long time, but not necessarily. Well, okay. So to continue on, is changing from automotive to electronics still as an engineer a career gap? Well, it doesn't matter what I think. I don't know. It matters what the people reading your resume think. It matters what the hiring managers think. That's what matters. Okay, and I can't answer that for you. That's going to vary. Okay. In addition, if you're in a small town, it may not be considered a career change. Whereas if you're in like a large metropolitan area with like a huge labor pool, it might be considered like, oh, that's a different thing, right? Because there's so many people there that are skilled in this precise thing, and there's so many other people there that are skilled in that other thing, right? They might be considered like, it's almost like two different careers. Whereas if you're in a small town, there's only 50 people in the entire town that would be qualified for either, right? Then it's not considered like an issue, right? So it really depends on the individual situation. So you don't know until you try. So try it and see what kind of reaction you get, okay? What you can do is you can send in your resume to a recruiter that's hiring for one of those jobs or something. Call them and say like, hey, I just put in for this. Doesn't make sense for me to apply for this job. Here, I'll send you my resume. You know, and then just get their opinion. They say, like, they look at it and go, I don't know. I mean, you know, we're really looking for someone that has this. And you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you're right. I don't have that. Or you could say, well, okay, good, because I do have that. That's right here. If you look on the second page, it's right here. And they go, oh, okay, well, yeah, you should put in. Right? So there may be some things like that you could do. Now, Dipin says, how to deal with the gap will be rejected. Look, Dipin, I've told you, I've kind of spent a lot of time on this, and I've told you that I have other specific videos just on work gaps. So check those out, okay? And check out my other resources. Mary Grace says, I have gaps in my employment because I have had to take time off work to make raising my kids and being a stay-at-home mom. I was not received well at the second interview with an HR director. Yeah, because it's HR. It's HR. That's why. Now, if you talk to a hiring manager, okay, I mean, first of all, anything's possible, but the odds are that the hiring manager will not see that as the huge red flag that the HR director would, okay? And you know who really gets the say at the end of the day? It's the hiring manager, right? So that's what I would do if I were you, okay? If this is like a persistent problem, wherever you apply to, they're always throwing this back at you and saying, nope, sorry, you've got like this work gap, or, you know, this is an insurmountable obstacle. Then what you do is you go the networking route, okay? For reasons that I've kind of just explained in the last 10 minutes. Okay? A work gap means a non-standard resume. Now, if it's a short work gap, okay, you can sometimes get around it by saying like, well, look, during that gap, you know, I took this course, or I did this volunteering, or, you know, I went back to school, or, you know, some kind of activity that's useful, okay? So you can say it isn't really a gap. It's just that I decided to go and take this course or brush up on my skills, reevaluate, you know, this kind of thing. Update my skills, something like that. Okay. You might be able to get away with that depending on the circumstances, depending on how long the gap is. If you're currently experiencing the work gap, if you're in the work gap now, like the last job you had, you left 2 years ago or something, and this is your work gap, I would say quickly go take some free course online or something, just so you can say in the interview, it hasn't been a gap where I've been doing nothing. I just went back and took some courses and updated my skills, added new skills, made sure that my skills are relevant and they're updated to today, you know, this kind of thing. And I'm ready to rejoin the workforce. You know, then it's like, okay, there's no red flags there. Okay. The big issue with the work gap that recruiters are trained to have a problem with is because if you left a job, number one, you could leave this job if they were to hire you. So they hire you, and then 2 months later, you just say, "No, this job's not for me," because you're a quitter, right? Maybe the work gap was indicative that, you know, you just quit things. The other reason is that if you left a job for whatever reason, whatever legitimate reason, and then you couldn't find another job for a while, the implication is, well, maybe you're unhireable for something we're not aware of. Maybe there's a problem with you that we're not aware of. And that makes you a higher risk candidate. That could be true, or it could be not. We don't know, but we're not going to take the chance. It just means you're a higher risk candidate if we were to choose you, because there's this question mark. You know, this person has a history of being unemployed. We don't know why. It looks possibly suspicious. Maybe there's something wrong with them, right? This is how recruiters are trained to think. It's risk aversion. Okay. The great thing is that if you talk to hiring managers, generally speaking, especially hiring managers that are higher up, they're the opposite. They don't think about minimizing risk. They think about seizing opportunities. Okay. So, okay, you have a work gap, but what can you bring? Now, just the fact that you, like the example I've already brought up twice today, you show up, you have a meeting with them. Just ask them some questions. You know, that you contact them, you say, can I ask you a couple of questions about this industry? And, you know, so they have every opportunity to say no, but some people will say yes. Sure. So, okay, great. So they've invited you in. Then you show up and you say like, wow, you know, I love what you guys do here. I love this kind of business. I'd like to get into it. And I was wondering, and you ask them some questions. They can see how awesome you are. They see how passionate you are. They see how you're the type of person that has the initiative to do this stuff. Most people don't, but you have it. So they think, there's someone who could be a really dedicated employee that could really have a passion to excel in this role. And I like them. And I'm getting a preview of what it would be like to interoperate with them. And it's fun. They're making me feel good about myself. They're interested in what I have to say about, you know, the work we do here. They're asking some really intelligent questions. You know, that bodes well. That tends to suggest we're going to really click as people, which is pretty damn useful if you're going to be my subordinate, right? So there's some advantages in doing this. So sorry, I tend to ramble about everything, but and your question was no exception. But you know, I have stuff on work apps. Okay. If you're going through a recruiter, the recruiter will always see the work app as a red flag, as a liability. Okay. Sometimes there's some ways around it, but sometimes there aren't. The solution is to not go through recruiters because that's how they think. Go to hiring managers. They don't think like this. They look for opportunities. And you can easily smooth over a work app by compensating it with other things that you demonstrate. The most obvious being if you show up in person. Either you're invited in because you set that up, or you can even apply for a job in person. That's another possibility. You know, you want to apply to this place? Okay, you print off your resume and you print off a little business card. Costs you like literally $20 to make them. Order them online. And go and walk into the company, if it's in your hometown, with your resume in hand, with the business card in hand, and you go to the front desk and you say like, hello, is this person here? Can I speak to the manager of this department? You know, something like that. The answer you're going to get is no, like 90% of the time. Sorry, they're not available. You say, okay, no problem. Well, if I gave this to you, would you see that they get this? Right? Most people will say 95% of the time, they'll say, yes, sure. So, okay. Well, great. What can I ask? What's their name? You know, and 90% of the time they'll give you their name. At that point, you say, okay, well, here you go. If you could see they get this, that would be really great. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day. You know, something like that. And then what you do then is you follow up with a phone call to that person. You say, just following up, just wanted to make sure you got my resume. I left it at the front desk. If you haven't received it, it should be with the receptionist. They told me you were the person that gets those, right? Just seeing if you received it. And if they say no, it's like, okay, that's fine. But check. Because I want to put myself forward for that role, and I left my resume at the front desk, right? And how many people do you think do this? Not very many people. This distinguishes you. So number one, you're elevating yourself above all the other candidates by showing that you're passionate enough to do something like this. It's not awkward. It's not inappropriate. It shouldn't make you feel like you're breaking any rules because you're not. You know? And they're actually speaking with you. The person who makes the decisions is now speaking with you. You're not trying to talk them into anything. It doesn't have to be a very long interaction. Right? But that's how you overcome some of these challenges, you know? It's one way to do it. You don't have to do this, but it's one way that's very, very effective. You're welcome, Moises. I'm glad you guys are enjoying listening to my endless rambling monologue as I go seamlessly. Was it seamlessly from topic to topic? Gabriel says, gosh, recruiter's mentality is very damaging to everyone. Well, look, they're set up to do a very specific job. They find employees through a very specific way. And if you play into that, great. Like if that's who you are and they find you, great. But if you're someone that this doesn't really apply to you, like in the case of a work gap or changing careers or other things, you can't win at this game sometimes. You have to go around it. The great news is that there are more people that go around it than there are people who play this game. That's what nobody tells you in school. Once again, don't take my word for this. Go do your own research. You're going to find this is true. I mean, I've lived this. I opened my consulting business by doing this type of thing, by making connections with many, many other CEOs in my hometown, by doing this kind of stuff. You know, by getting informational interviews with them and stuff, and doing methods similar to this. It's not really damaging. It's just that it's not appropriate for everybody. They think it's a one size fits all. It's not. Now, look at the type of people that you get in a lot of big organizations. You get people in big organizations that are people that are suited to big organizations. They're very process driven. They're not results driven. They spend all their time justifying what they do rather than doing something. And, they love, or they are certainly competent with things like office politics, covering your butt, making it seem like you're doing your job, and always taking the safe choice, right? A lot of jobs, that's fine. People like that, they're good to work in those jobs. Reliable, predictable, vanilla type people. Are you going to get the real disruptive, innovative people that come out that are brilliant, that come up with crazy off the wall things? No, of course not. And this is reflected by their hiring practices. And then people wonder why some of these extremely large organizations fail, because they can't see the most obvious thing in the world, right? When it's obvious to everyone else in the world. Anyway, Jay Grace says, hello, any examples of good, unique value propositions or reason why they would hire you instead of other candidates? Of course. How much time do you have? You could start by looking at the job posting if you're working off a job posting, and they say, we're looking for this, and this. Why should we hire you? Well, I've got this, right? You're looking for that, right? You're looking for this, 2 years experience. I got 5 years experience. You're looking for this skill. You want someone who can drive a forklift. I've driven a forklift every day for 5 years. Whatever. And on and on and on and on. Daipen says, will it be smart to explain the gap or career path change in the cover letter? Yeah, you could do that. I don't know. I kind of wouldn't, because I wouldn't lead with okay, I just want you to understand, I got this problem, right? But it's okay because here's the explanation. It's like, I wouldn't lead with that. I would not draw their attention to any faults when you're putting in an application. The purpose of the application is to get the interview. Don't raise any red flags, okay? The way it works is that if they see a red flag on your resume, they're not going to look for an explanation or an excuse. They're just going to move on to the next resume, okay? Like, why spend extra time trying to see if there's a justification for every fault you find? They're not going to do that. Nobody does that. You know what I mean? The way it works is that you get the interview. Maybe you get a second interview if it's more than one in the process. They fall in love with you. They invest time dealing with you. They do background checks. They call your references. They put all this effort and time into you. then you see that, they've spent so much, they've invested so much in you. They don't want to just eliminate you by the stroke of a pen. They're looking, then they'll listen at that point to maybe an excuse or an explanation or a justification, right? But when it's right at the beginning, they see something immediately wrong in this application. No, next. They've got hundreds of applications to go through. They have to whittle down triple-digit number of applications to 10, 6, like however many interviews they're going to do. So any reason they'll have to eliminate someone, they'll just eliminate them. I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's the reality. So I would not lead with pointing out a fault. It's not wrong. You can do it, and sometimes it might work, but I wouldn't. That's just my opinion. I have to wrap this up very soon, actually. I've got about 5 minutes, so let's see if we can get through these quickly. Where did I leave off here? This keeps moving on me. I didn't even get a chance really to use my other camera that much. Let's see. Mary Grace. Okay, because the hiring managers seem to be like me. Oh, they seem to like you. Good. That's what you want. You want the hiring managers to like you. They're the buck stops with them. Okay? If they don't like you, the whole thing's over. It doesn't matter how much the recruiter likes you if the hiring manager is not sold on you. Okay? Jacob says, your video is great and I love them. I have a question. If I set a time and date with a senior talent acquisition in the afternoon or morning through day, will they eliminate you because of time or date? Look, anything's possible. I mean, if they're going to eliminate you because of the time of day that you spoke to them, you might not want to be dealing with these people. If you're asking, is there a best time of the day to deal with people? Look, the general rule is that first thing after lunch, people tend to be in a slightly better mood because they've just come off lunch. They're more relaxed. They've had some food. They're feeling a little bit better. They're not quite as irritable as they were before lunch, right? If you then talk to them on a Friday, like assuming they work regular hours and Saturday, Sunday is a weekend. If you talk to them on Friday, they tend to be a little bit in a better mood. So if you talk to them after lunch on a Friday, that's kind of the best. Once again, this is a small factor, right? But if you're asking if there's you could pick any time of the day or day of the week to talk to somebody to try and get them more favorable to or more amenable to what you want, I'd say immediately after lunch on a Friday would be the best time. Jacob Tremble says, I did not hear anything from them yet. It's been 3 weeks to give them a call or email. Yeah, why not? Why not? If you haven't heard from them for 3 weeks and you're expecting it, it's probably a no. But there's absolutely no harm in following up. Just say, hey, I was just following up. Was there any progress on this? Please let me know. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Coming down to the end of this, I got another 2 minutes. You're welcome, Jay Grace. Gabriel says, what is the view of foreign contractors in the U.S.? Well, how would I know that? I'm not in the U.S. and yeah. Talking about international matters and immigration is not really my thing, okay? I could have an opinion on it, but why is my opinion more valid than anyone else's? It isn't. But you're asking me about something that's not even my home country, so I don't know. Maybe talk to I believe there's YouTube channels that focus on immigration, and they focus on immigration specifically to the US. They might be able to help you a bit better on that type of question, certainly than I could. Levi says, hey, thank you for having this Q&A. Yes, I do it every week, so I'm here every Monday. Daipen, thank you so much. You're welcome, Daipen. Thank you for being here. And Levi says, I was wondering how you think about having a founder job position at the resume, and how should it be handled when applying to jobs from the candidate perspective. What do you mean? You mean on your resume, you have, as part of your work experience, you're saying founder of like whatever company. Generally, that's, once again, if it goes to a recruiter, generally that will not be regarded favorably. First of all, they probably won't know what a founder is. And secondly, unless you're applying for a job as a founder, which is kind of a contradiction, they'll regard it as inappropriate experience. It's not relevant in their minds. Now, you and I both know that's some of the best experience you could ever get, is being the founder of a business. Even if it fails, it's still really, really useful. You learn so much doing that, than you do working in like corporate careers for like decades. But the problem is, if it's going to a recruiter, they won't regard it as useful. If it's going to a hiring manager, then maybe it might be worth putting on there. But I'm going to go with my default position on this, which is, you should omit it from your resume. If it's any kind of startup or entrepreneurial thing, you should omit it, because it will harm you in most situations, in most conventional jobs, especially going through recruiters. It'll harm you more than it helps you. It's stupid because it should be highly prized. Unfortunately, it's not regarded that way. And once again, I've got the wrong camera angle. There we go. Anyway, I have to get rolling now. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are all awesome. There's 23 of you guys here. I hope you got something out of this. I'm here every Monday. So if you got questions, come back. Check out my videos. Like, do searches for specific topics. If you're wondering about work gaps, I have videos on that. If you're wondering about changing careers, I've got videos on that. If you're wondering about like certain aspects of how to do certain networking type activities, I've got videos on those. So check out my channel and check out some of those videos. They can give you a bit more, rehearsed and consistent answers than what I can give off the top of my head on the fly here. So thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Check out my courses if either of those would be useful. I'm trying to do this. My screen is a mirror image of the actual thing, so this is very awkward to do. But check out either of those. And I will see you next week. Take care.